The MacBook Pro 13-inch. This is the standard entry point for those looking at getting into their very first Apple computer. It's a mix of both affordability, well, I mean, as far as Apple computers go, power, portability, and functionality. It's like a perfect little nexus of a computer. So, how does this new version hold up after one solid week of use? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, that's a joke because you guys keep commenting about that. First off, let's get the obvious out of the way. I am a gigantic fan of the Apple MacBook Pro 13 line. I think this is the best value computer that you can get. So be fully aware, like steel yourselves, that I'm not exactly objective when it comes to this computer. Also, I'm not gonna bore you with specs or features or anything like that. If you do want a little more in-depth coverage on what I think about the 2020 MacBook Pro 13, especially in comparison to other devices, I'll leave a link to my playlist covering very in-depth about this computer in the description or here you can click on. I never remember what I'm doing as I'm uploading these. What we're gonna talk about today is what I care about in the way that I actually use these devices, be it cameras, computers, phones, etc. So today I'm gonna talk about the things that I really like and the things that I don't really like after putting this through its paces. First off, and I like to start these things off, grounding us all in reality, let's start off with the things that I don't like. Because while this is my favorite, that doesn't mean I can't nitpick it a bit. I'm like the king nitpicker. So first off, the main thing that I don't like about this base model Pro is that it only has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. You can get a version with 4 ports, but you have to upgrade to the $1,700 model chassis. So I just think that any product, if you're gonna label a product MacBook Pro or Apple, anything Pro, it should come standard with 4 ports. The main problem I have is when using certain dongles or external devices, these 2 ports are so darn close together that it's very easy to block one, which essentially leaves you with only one device usable or one dongle usable or only one port usable at a time. That sucks. And I accept this, or at least I tolerate it from the MacBook Air, as it's designed to really be a high-end ultrabook. It's not really designed to get all of these kind of heavy-duty tasks done on it. For a computer designed to actually get work done, we should either have 4-port standard, or we should separate the 2 on the side. So one here, one here. That would make it so much more functional. Something else I don't like, and again, I buy the base model of things, this has the older 8th generation chipsets. If you want the newest 10th generation Intel chipset, you have to upgrade again to that $1,700 version. I do understand that they essentially traded us the 256 gigabyte drive for keeping that price down, but the $1,300 version of the MacBook Air has the 10th generation chipset and even the faster RAM than this device has. I don't, like right here in front of me, I don't have Apple's component price sheets or anything like that, but I'd gladly trade the touch bar for that extra processor power and that faster RAM. Like those things in this base model, I guess then there's not a reason to buy the more expensive model. And something else new that I'll complain about, and this is something I haven't really talked about before, but it's the web camera. I never really cared about webcams before, but all of these social distancing and working from home stuff, webcams have all of a sudden come up on my radar because all of my day is set up sitting in front of a web camera. So this shot way up to the top of my priority list. And the webcam here, it's just terrible. I mean, it's bad. 720p FaceTime camera is something I'd expect from a computer 10 years ago, not a cutting-edge portable production machine. The microphones do kind of make up for it, so at least you'll sound good on your business meetings, but even the iPad Pro has a better web camera. This is something that I do hope Apple will fix going forward, because just like all of us, I'm pretty sure Apple was caught off guard with how important telework was about to become while they were designing this, so this is the last one I'm willing to let that slide on, because it's not very good. Those are the big things I don't like. I mean, a few smaller ones would be, I'd rather have the function keys from the MacBook Air instead of the touch bar, and why there's still no SD card reader in a Pro device. Yes, I'll die. This is a hill I'm willing to die on, and I'll complain about this forever, so you better buckle up. Bah! That's enough of the negative. Now let's talk about the positives, because there are a lot of them, and again, spoilers, I really like this computer. First and foremost, in my opinion, the best thing that they did here is the brand new Magic Keyboard. Well, it's not brand new, it's about a year old coming out of the MacBook Pro 16, but I love this keyboard. You've heard me say this in basically every video I make with a computer. I spend the majority of my day typing in front of that web camera. So the easier and better feeling and experience I can get from typing is something that I will shout from the mountaintops. It's early in the morning, so I'm pretty sure I just woke my wife up, and I'll have to pay for that in a little bit. Maybe we should start making videos about keyboards if I love typing so much. How do you make a video about a keyboard? This new keyboard is absolutely something special. I loved it on the MacBook Pro 16, I loved it on the new MacBook Air, and I continue to love it here. It's been a while since I made that video about the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I still struggle to put into words how good it just feels so good to type on these new keyboards. It's refreshing almost. I have several devices that I regularly type on, and this new keyboard style, it's the best. It's the best of all the computers that I have and all the keyboards that I use. If I'm gonna have to type something, I'm typing something on a computer with this keyboard. The iPad Magic Keyboard's great too, and it's a welcome addition to the Folio keyboard, but it's not the same. The Magic Keyboard with numeric keys for my iMac is also good, but it doesn't have just that it doesn't have as satisfying give as these keys have. Maybe it's the same thing and it's all in my head. I don't know. I love this. And I also have an old broken Logitech K120 that I use for my regular jobs work from home keyboard. It's awful. It might seem like a silly thing to go on about in every single video, but so much of my experience interacting with a computer, and whether making YouTube videos or whatever, so much of my interaction with these devices is through the keyboard. So when a company does a good job with this, and Apple has done a fantastic job listening to customer feedback, I'm definitely gonna talk about it because I want to promote that kind of behavior. If you have a device that isn't working and you're willing to burn it to the ground to make your audience happy, I will talk you up for that. I promise, no more typing talk in this video. We'll put the keyboard away so I can't even look about it. The next thing I really like is the power. What? Weren't you just complaining about that? It's got the 8th generation Intel chips and DDR3 RAM. Those aren't powerful, Mr. Everyday Dad. If that even is your real name. It's not. My name's not Everyday Dad. It actually is powerful, shockingly so in fact. Now I don't have my base model 2019 anymore to make a comparison, but I spent a good while last year using that as my only computer. I feel pretty confident in how fast of a machine that was, and this is faster. You saw it in a previous video. We went through a whole project already with this MacBook Pro, and I'm still surprised at how fast the render speed went. Both of those devices handled the actual editing fine, but I used to spend over twice the length of the video in rendering. So a 10-minute video would take roughly 20-25 minutes to render, whereas this device rendered a 5-minute video in 7 minutes. Not exactly apples to apples, but you can do some math and make it kind of like 10 minutes would be like 14 minutes. And when we did this, I ran Final Cut Pro X through the ringer with serious files for that, and I wasn't using 10-bit in my workflow 6 months ago. This 2020 version held up remarkably well, having 3 layers of 4K 10-bit in it. And that kind of processing power and that kind of capability is more than enough for me to say, this can do everything. If you do want a bit more reduction in that render speed, you'll need to start spending substantially more money. And honestly, if you aren't in a rush, or you don't have very strict timelines, or heck, you aren't even dabbling in 4K 10-bit files, I don't know that you'd need much more power than the base model MacBook Pro 13. Maybe a bigger hard drive, but I'm totally happy with the power on display here. Something else that I like, even though I kind of wish the investment had been made elsewhere, is I do like that every model across the board got an upgrade in its storage capacity. Even this base model got a boost. Last year's model started off with 128 gigabytes, which is honestly mostly taken up with just the operating system. I mean, I couldn't do anything with that computer without having an external drive, basically always plugged into it. The cheapest now has a 256 gigabyte standard, which is what I would consider to be the absolute bare minimum. I typed that in all caps in the script because I'm serious here. This is my serious face. 256 gigabyte is the absolute, like that is barely scraping by for the minimum for any kind of creative recommendation from me. And I'd argue that even with 256 gigabytes, you'll still need some kind of external drive to get the most out of this computer. But fairness for fairness sakes, double the storage for the same price, that's something I'm pretty happy about. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Is the MacBook Pro 13-inch from 2020, especially this base cheapest model you can get, worth buying? Yes, absolutely. I love this computer, legitimately. This is probably my favorite computer ever made. I was really on the iPad train with its new Magic Keyboard, and while I really still enjoy using it as like a secondary device, this is where you go to get real work done. Everything you could ever want to do as a student, as a YouTuber, as a Twitter, what is a person that uses Twitter? As a tweeter? Photo editing, everything can be done on this device, and it can be done so fast, efficiently, and as far as Apple products go, without breaking the bank too heavily. I highly recommend the base model here, and when my business lease is up on my iMac, I'll probably just continue using this as my primary editing computer. Because for me, this is the peak of what I or what other people could need. Until, disclaimer, asterisk right here, until the next Apple computer comes along. And if you liked this video, and you agree with me and you decide to go out and get a base model MacBook Pro 13, I bet you'd like to see all of the great accessories and other things that you could use to spec this bad boy out even more and turn it into just a total monster machine. And it just so happens, thankfully for both of us, that I just so happen to have a video that you can find that out by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.